Record.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us. I am Carol Blackwell, the Parent Support Liaison for OPEC, the Office of Programs for Exceptional Children at Virginia Beach City Public Schools. On behalf of our SEAC, the Special Education Advisory Committee, and our Office of Family and Community Engagement, we all welcome you to our webinar presentation, Anatomy of an Individualized Education Program. Tonight's presentation is the third Family Connection webinar in our Special Education Empowerment Series. Before I introduce our speaker for this evening, I would like to thank our Special Education Advisory Committee for their partnership and collaboration for our Special Education Empowerment Series and all other endeavors to support our students with disabilities. I would also like to thank our Department of Communications and Community Engagement for their support and collaboration for the production and promotion of tonight's event. We certainly want to give special thanks to my colleague, Mary Hunt, who is providing technical support for us this evening. Please visit our Virginia Beach City Public Schools website for more information on our Special Education Advisory Committee, our Office of Programs for Exceptional Children, and our Office of Family and Community Engagement. Our contact information is provided in the chat and will also be streaming at the close of the event. Our guest speaker tonight is Ms. Christine Drescher. Ms. Drescher currently serves as a Special Education Compliance Coordinator for Virginia Beach City Public Schools. Ms. Drescher started her teaching career in Florida, and she has been with Virginia Beach City Public Schools since 1991. She worked as a special education classroom teacher for 20 years before coming to the Office of Programs for Exceptional Children as an instructional specialist. She moved into the role of Special Education Coordinator in 2014. She has a Bachelor of Arts in Education, majoring in Special Education, and a Master of Education from the University of Florida with a Postmaster Certificate in Educational Leadership from the George Washington University. Thank you again, Ms. Drescher, for your service to our community and for your presentation tonight.
Thank you, Carol. And thank you everybody for joining us for the Anatomy of an IEP. I'm going to share my screen. Bear with me for just a moment while I do that. An IEP is an individualized education program for students eligible under IDEA that is developed to meet the needs of students with disabilities within the educational setting. An IEP must be developed and proposed within 30 calendar days of the initial eligibility determination or within 1 year of the previous IEP, which we call the annual review here in Virginia Beach. In Virginia Beach, you may hear IEP and annual review used interchangeably. IEP meetings should be scheduled at a mutually agreeable time and date, and parents are provided written notice of the IEP team meeting. A draft of the IEP should be sent to parents 2 business days before the meeting to allow you time to review the document and prepare for the meeting. I would recommend to you a similar strategy that I often recommend to teachers. Review the IEP in advance of the meeting, highlight key areas that you want to make sure you discuss during the meeting, jot down questions or notes if something seems confusing or you need some questions answered. Make some notes if there's something that you want the team to consider that has not been included in the draft. An IEP requires informed written consent from the parent prior to implementation. An IEP is developed at least annually and can be amended through an IEP team meeting. An IEP is a living document. It can be updated as the student's needs change, and either the parent or the school can request an IEP meeting at any time to address concerns. Under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, or IDEA as we call it, each student with a disability is entitled to a free appropriate public education, or what we often call FAPE. The Supreme Court ruled in the Andrew F. case in 2017 that special education should be reasonably calculated to enable a child to receive educational benefit. Every IEP should be appropriately ambitious in light of each student's circumstances, and every child with an IEP should have the opportunity to meet challenging goals and objectives. What the Andrew F. case did was raise the bar to ensure that students with disabilities are challenged and participate in a rigorous educational program in light of their individual strengths and needs. So let's start with the who of IEPs. The who is the IEP team. If we use the analogy of anatomy and humanize the process, the IEP team is your child's school family. The case manager may be considered the head of that family. The case manager is the special education teacher who will be overseeing your students' programming during the school year. The case manager gets to know your child, works collaboratively to plan and implement the programming necessary to provide that free and appropriate public education. In addition to the special education teacher / case manager, the team includes a general education teacher, an administrator that we call the principal's designee, any specialist or related service provider whose expertise is necessary to address your child's unique needs, and the parents and the student as appropriate. IEP development is a collaborative effort between school staff, parents, and the student. The case manager will gather data to determine your child's current levels through daily instruction, classroom-based and division-wide assessments, as well as current statewide assessments. This information will provide the starting point for IEP development. It's important that your child's strengths and interests are incorporated into the programming. Please share this information with your child's teachers, along with areas of concern. Consider your short-term and long-term goals for your child, and these goals may change over time. What skills would you like to see by the end of the year? In the next 5 years? How about after high school and into adulthood? An IEP is developed with short and long-term goals in mind. An IEP should be individualized, designed to meet your child's unique needs. Let's start with transition to adulthood. It seems like that's starting at the end, but it's a really important part. And if your child is aged 14 through 22, this is one of the first sections you will see in the IEP. A successful transition to adulthood where each student successfully contributes to their home and community to the greatest extent possible is the overarching goal of any education program. For students with disabilities who qualify for special education services in Virginia, the IEP begins to specifically address the transition to adulthood the year the student turns 14. At each IEP beginning at age 14, the team should be discussing the requirements for various diploma options available to your student and considering which type the student is able to attain. You can select more than one option for consideration. You need to consider whether you want a community-based agency such as the Department of Aging and Rehabilitative Services, DARS, involved in your child's IEP meeting to discuss transition planning. The case manager will ask you this annually and gain your consent to invite the agency representative if you wish. The transition to adulthood portion of the IEP does not appear until the student turns 14. So that's typically 8th or 9th grade. So if your students in elementary school or early middle school and they're not turning 14 within the life of this IEP, you won't see this section of the IEP yet. Teams can always address this section early, but it doesn't populate automatically until that age of 14. Classroom-based transition assessments conducted by the case manager will help predict what's in store for your child after high school. These assessments will vary from year to year to help identify your child's strengths, preferences, and interests regarding post-secondary outcomes in the areas of education, training, independent living, and employment. Within the transition section of the IEP, we then have coordinated activities that support those post-secondary goals. There are instructional activities that take place now to support the likelihood that the post-secondary goals will be met. The projected course of study is also within this section, and it discusses the coursework that your child is currently taking and then needs to take in the next school year to earn the diploma option that the team has selected for the student to work toward. An IEP must contain a statement of the child's present levels of academic achievement and functional performance. It's what we call the PLAF. When we come up with our acronyms, they aren't always the easiest to say. So when this one changed from PLOP to PLAF, it was definitely a tongue twister for me. Academic achievement generally refers to a child's performance in academic areas, such as reading, written expression, and math, or for preschool children, age-appropriate developmental milestones. Functional performance generally refers to skills or activities that may not be related to a child's academic achievement and can include social skills. Functional is often used in the context of routine activities of everyday living and are varied depending on the individual needs of the child. Functional performance can impact educational achievement. This section, referred to as the PLAF, can be considered the control center of the IEP, the brain. It describes the child's current abilities, skills, challenges, and strengths. The PLAF is broken up into several sections. The first is a summary of test history, which includes performance on state assessments such as Standards of Learning or the Virginia Alternate Assessment Program, the VAP. Next is a summary of current assessments that describe your child's performance on division-wide growth assessments, standardized tests, curriculum-based and classroom-based assessments, and any relative evaluations conducted through the Special Education Committee when determining eligibility for special education. The strengths and needs section of the present level of academic achievement and functional performance is really, to me, the heart and soul of the student's programming. These sections include a summary of your child's strengths and needs across the following 7 domains, with communication addressed throughout. We have an academic domain, sensory, which addresses vision, hearing, orientation, sensory input. We have life skills that can address shopping, money, laundry, and communication. Adaptive skills may include self-care skills such as eating or dressing, toileting, hygiene, communication. Motor skills will address fine and gross motor skills and mobility within the educational setting. Social skills will address relationships with peers and staff and communication again. And then pre-vocational, vocational, or transition to adulthood will address organization, task completion, ability to follow directions, and skills that set the foundation for job skills later on. The needs section of this portion of the PLAF will only address those domains in which there is a need. And the needs noted in this section should be addressed within the IEP through accommodations and/or goals and services. The effect of the disability is also within the PLAF. And it describes how the student's disability affects progress in the general curriculum and notes what types of services and accommodations are needed to access that curriculum. Parent input is a required element of an IEP. During the development of the IEP, it is important to let the case manager know your concerns and input on how to enhance your child's programming. You can provide the parent input in writing in advance of the meeting and add to it or revise input during the meeting. If you don't have a chance to do that in advance, or you're not sure what you want to state in advance, you're welcome to do that during the meeting as well. But it's really important that your voice is heard within the IEP. So your voice definitely matters. Progress on current IEP goals must also be reported to close out the previous IEP and set the stage for the new proposed goals within the annual review. You may see each goal listed with progress noted or a summary of the progress that was made. All of the parts of an IEP need to support each other and should align with what is written in the present level of academic achievement and functional performance. Alignment is key. The next main section of the IEP is called the special considerations. And this section addresses the requirement that all IEPs must consider these areas in their development. Communication is a significant theme within IEPs, and deficits should be clearly addressed. In this section, if related speech services are necessary to support effective communication within the school setting, it would be considered and documented here, as well as within the services, the primary or related services. Benchmarks and short-term objectives are required for students being assessed on the Virginia Essentialized Standards of Learning via the Virginia Alternate Assessment Program. This would be the students who are participating in a functional curriculum working below their grade level standards of learning. For all other students working on grade level standards of learning, the benchmarks or short-term objectives are optional, but may be used if it offers a better way for the student to demonstrate progress on a goal. An IEP team must consider whether the student has a need for assistive technology above and beyond what is provided for all students within the classroom. An assistive technology specialist can be invited to attend meetings to support the discussion for this consideration when needed. The team should also consider the student's need for positive behavioral supports and/or a behavior intervention plan to address behaviors within the school settings. The IEP team must consider and document whether the student is an English language learner or not. If the student is blind or has a visual impairment, the team must consider whether the student requires instruction in Braille. And if the student is deaf or hard of hearing, the team must consider whether the student requires an alternate mode of communication. Goals should address academic and/or functional skills that the student can reasonably accomplish or master during the life of the annual IEP, and should address deficits noted in the needs section of the PLAF. Goals can be broken down into short-term objectives. As I had said on the previous slide, this is a requirement for students who are on a functional curriculum and being assessed via VAP, or the Virginia Alternate Assessment Program. Goals should be written in measurable terms and align with the pre-score data. Was the baseline or pre-score data collected in the same manner that the goal data will be collected, on which progress will be reported? When you read the goals in your child's IEP, do you understand what that looks like when they collect that data? If you don't, it's reasonable to ask the teacher to explain that or help clarify it. And it might be that we need to revise the goal to make it more clear. Progress on goals should be reported at least quarterly with each report card period, or more often if the student is making insufficient progress on goals or within the curriculum, and when progress is reported for all students. Accommodations can change how a student accesses or learns material, but it does not alter the content of the curriculum. Accommodations may alter the presentation of material, the method of response from the student. They may adjust the setting, the timing, the scheduling, in order to provide the student the supports that are needed to access instruction and demonstrate their skills. Accommodations and services are a meaty piece of this IEP, this anatomy of the IEP, and I consider those some of the appendages. So if you notice, I've had some arms and legs on some of these slides. But with services, we document the specially designed instruction that the student receives to explicitly teach the goals within the IEP. Service minutes and frequency are used to document the amount of specially designed instruction the student receives. This section of the IEP includes the location, such as public day school, and setting, which refers to the type of classroom, general or special education, and the date ranges that those services will be provided. Specially designed instruction means the adapting of the content, the methodology, or the delivery of instruction to the needs of an eligible child to address the unique needs of that child that result from the child's disability, and to ensure the child's access to the general curriculum, so the child can meet educational standards that apply to all children. If the student requires related services to support their progress, they will be documented in the same manner as the primary services. It's important to note that the qualifying criteria for medical services differ from the educational criteria for related services. Related services are provided to support the student's access to their educational programming. Extended school year is often called ESY, and sometimes we speak in acronyms, so I've tried really hard to make sure that I spell these out within this presentation, and it takes a while to learn them all, and you don't need to know them all. If we speak in acronyms, please interrupt us and ask us to explain what we've just said, because sometimes we just get on a roll. But ESY services are the individualized extension of specific special education and related services that are provided beyond the normal school year. The IEP team should consider and determine if the student does not receive ESY services, will this significantly jeopardize the student's ability to receive some benefit from their educational program during the regular school year? Factors that should be considered when considering ESY include the regression and recoupment of skills, the degree of progress on critical life skills, emerging skills or breakthrough opportunities, interfering behaviors, the nature and severity of the student's disability, and any special circumstances that may need to be considered. Often, if you have an IEP meeting early in the year, the teacher may need additional data, may need additional time to collect additional data to determine whether or not they would recommend ESY services for the student. So often these decisions could be made in the spring. Next section of the IEP is the testing section. The IEP team must consider which assessments your student will participate in and what accommodations may be necessary to support your child in demonstrating their skills. This slide is a reference to know which subject areas are being assessed at each grade level. I've done this for a long time. Every once in a while they change, and I always have to find a cheat sheet. So hopefully this slide will be a helpful cheat sheet for some of you to remember what's being assessed at what grade level or what grade range. Statewide assessments assess how students perform on state standards, and division-wide assessments are conducted to measure progress within the curriculum and inform instruction. It is often appropriate that accommodations on the tests may vary based on their purpose. Information from these assessments can be valuable in assisting in IEP development. For example, a student may get accommodations on state testing, so they're able to demonstrate the skills that they do have, and they need those accommodations to do so. Division-wide assessments, the teachers may recommend they not receive certain accommodations because the information from the division-wide assessments will be used to inform instruction, so we know what areas we need to target in our instruction. On this slide, I've spelled out the acronyms that are seen within the IEP to assist you in knowing what each assessment is, especially that VKRP1 and EMAS that's given to our kindergarten students. That's a mouthful. The least restrictive environment means that children with disabilities are educated with children without disabilities to the maximum extent appropriate to meet the child's needs. Each public school division must ensure that special classes, separate schooling, or other removal of children with disabilities from the regular education environment occurs only if the nature or severity of the disability is such that education in regular classes with the use of supplementary aids and services cannot be achieved satisfactorily. The least restrictive environment is a critical element in a student's individualized education program and defines the level of services, the type of classroom, where the services are delivered, and impacts where and how the student is instructed within the school and community. Schools are required to ensure that a continuum of alternative placements are available to meet the needs of children with disabilities for special education and related services. These placement options include general education classes, special education classes, special education schools, home-based or homebound instruction, instruction in hospitals and institutions, including state facilities. Within this portion of the IEP, the placement options that are considered should be checked with the determination selected, and you'll see that populate in the IEP that you receive. Most often, you will see public day school as the LRE option considered and selected for most of our students. Other options are correctional education programs, home-based placement, hospital programs, private day schools, private and public residential schools, or public separate schools. Consent is the foundation on which the IEP stands. Note the feet I put in the corner. Without informed written consent, the IEP cannot be implemented. Prior written notice is written by the designee documenting the considerations, proposals, and refusal determined by the IEP team. The prior written notice, or PWN, as we call it, is provided after the IEP meeting, but prior to implementation. This document should be provided to you prior to you providing your written consent to the IEP. IEPs require the informed written consent for the parents or adult student. The prior written notice is how we, the school division, document the informed piece of that informed written consent requirement. Since we are no longer restricted by social distancing, BPCPS is moving back to face-to-face meetings and gaining physical signatures on documents like we did pre-pandemic. School teams will work with parents using alternate methods such as Zoom or Google when necessary, but it is our hope to get back to face-to-face meetings as a standard practice. You have many resources available to you that I've included here. The case manager and special education teacher is a great place to start. Know who the assistant principal overseeing special education at your child's school is, and reach out when you need assistance if you haven't been able to reach the case manager or gotten the answers that you need. Every school has 2 special education coordinators from the Office of Programs for Exceptional Children, and we can help you address compliance and instructional concerns and can assist you and the school in navigating various special education processes. We can attend IEP meetings if you would like. Additional resources include your family's special education rights, the Parent's Guide to Special Education, and VDOE's webpage for special education families. The pictures within this slide are hyperlinks to these documents. VDOE's webpage for special education families has a really valuable section called the Critical Decision Points for Families of Children with Disabilities. Within that section, there are one-pagers on specific documents. There is an overall Word document that gives you guidance, and there are YouTube videos that are posted to answer questions and provide you information. It's a really valuable source. I do hope that this overview has helped you gain an understanding of the anatomy of an IEP. And it was difficult to go into too much detail because so much of the IEP is individualized. So I tried to hit the highlights of the sections of the IEPs. If you have any questions regarding your child's IEP, I would ask you to please reach out to the resources mentioned. Please reach out to us here at OPEC, and also Carol Blackwell, who introduced me so kindly at our Parent Support and Information Center. I will stop sharing my screen at this point and turn it back over to Carol. Let me stop the share. Sorry, that took me a while.
I want to thank you again, Ms. Drescher, for this wonderful presentation and for being here tonight. We are also grateful for our audience and your participation this evening. We hope the information that was shared will be beneficial to you and your families and contribute to our student success. This presentation will be made available on our website in a few days. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.